recording now. I'm pretty sure, I think we looked at this one last time and we moved it to do, but I think that there was one that we didn't look at, or there might have been two. I believe this was one of them, but again, I don't know, since Duncan's not here, I don't know if people have anything to comment on this issue. It was moved into to do, but I don't think we really discussed it all. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
Didn't really keep any notes last week that would tell me one way or the other, but I don't remember particularly discussing it now.
Yeah, I think I remember us talking about, we went in order, like and I remember us talking about this ticket because of the breakout here. So I remember that one, but I know we didn't get to everything. So I'm pretty sure, yeah. Well, actually, I know we talked about this ticket. Maybe we didn't talk about these two. I'm not sure.
Yeah, my notes say that we had a long discussion on issue 42.
Yeah.
And I don't recall specifically getting to 43. And as you say, I think we just ran out of time, certainly to ever get anywhere close to 44.
Okay, so let's start with 43 then. And should Pace pick a winner for our database?
This is probably a subject on which people other than myself are more likely to have meaningful opinions.
Yeah. And I was actually going to say I'd probably share this opinion of not picking a winner, at least not yet.
Yeah, I think there's consensus on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't speak for the group. I agree that we should not pick a winner.
Yeah, I agree as well. So maybe for now we should just, since this ticket has been moved into to do, and since not everybody's at this meeting, maybe we should revisit. And for the time being, at least the people today seem to share the opinion that we should not pick a winner.
I agree with the opinion, but I do have a question, again, coming from the fact that I'm not an implementer. Duncan said, recommend we specify the interfaces, not the implementation. But it strikes me that some database technologies are going to wind up somewhat at odds with particular ways of describing interfaces. And so specifying an interface may at least lead you down a path toward particular solutions. And maybe I'm offline on that.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I think it would probably work in the other direction. If you picked an implementation, some implementations have their own interface stack that you would use, but other implementations, could be used with any interface. So yeah, I don't think picking an interface determines the implementation, but it may work the other way.
All right, I'm just going to put in a note that we did take a look at this ticket then. So Um, all right, so I'm gonna go on to the next issue, which is 44. And this one, it looks like we moved into 2 as well. I believe this is the other ticket from last week.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this one would have even stronger consensus, that yeah, we would encourage implementations. I don't know if you want to call them reference implementations, but the whole point of PACE is to support interoperability testing, and so there should be multiple implementations.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Does anybody else have anything to weigh on this one?
I think the bigger issue is finding people willing to put in the work to build them.
Indeed. Okay.
I guess just as an observation, DoD is sponsoring HII, but I'm looking at doing an implementation. I may or may not succeed, um, but that would be independent of what we're sponsoring HII to do. So I hope we would have at least 2, or only 1 if I fail.
Did I save that? All right. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
So 20 is a new issue that I submitted since last meeting.
This one? Or
Yeah, that.
okay.
So I don't know if we want to put a card on it or whatever, but um, we have the architecture diagrams showing the 3 interfaces and the message flows, but I think there needs to be an additional message beyond what's shown there. So if you can click right down at the bottom and then open the file. That's my modification to the diagram. First, the architecture currently says the first transaction is for the decision maker to tell the PCS to get an SBOM and insert it. In order to perform that, you need to know what component you're trying to get the SBOM from. So I think we need a transaction before number 1 so that the decision maker can figure out what components he could ask for SBOMs for. And so that's a proposal to define a new step in this flow diagram. So, so I don't know if we're doing technical discussions now or whether Duncan needs to be present or whatever, but that's a proposal for something I think needs to be done.
So if I'm following your logic, Dave, the notion here is that the decision-making components first go looking for an SBOM in the posture attribute repository, don't find one or don't find one that's adequately up to date, and then invoke the posture collection service to fix that problem.
Well, that was what I was originally thinking, but Duncan says no, that's a different use case. The use case is, and you can close this and go back to the issue. The use case says insert an SBOM into Pace. You know that, and so I'm not saying. Um, so yeah, that first line there, decision making element, e.g. a SOAR, sends a command telling PCS to retrieve the SBOM from a device. So even without asking whether the PCS or whether the PACE already has an SBOM, you need to know what device ID 2345 actually is. And you don't, the decision maker isn't going to know what device IDs are out there unless it can find out what they are. So this is exactly Duncan's use case. Retrieve an SBOM and insert it into Pace. But in order to make that happen, you need to know what the devices are. The decision maker needs to know that before it can issue that command. So
So the question this brings to my mind is how this relates to the discussion we had about asset management and whether asset management was inside of PACE or outside of PACE.
right.
And I guess I'd been envisioning that the asset management outside of PACE that I thought had been the consensus there was how the decision-making component would know about the devices.
Okay, if that is a decision and we're going to say we're not going to define an interface to asset management, then we still need something for the plug fest in order to, I mean, somebody's going to have to say, yeah, I'm going to bring an asset manager, and you'll have to interface with it somehow, but we're not defining that as part of PACE. But we're if we're going to implement something, we need to have it. So
Right.
how do you make that non-standard and yet something that the decision maker can use? So
Right. Okay.
anyway, that's, when we do have, you know technical discussions on what people are going to bring to PACE to test, this is one of the issues that'll have to be discussed, and either say everybody brings their own asset manager and DM together,
Mhm.
or we define some kind of interface.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read this issue in any details, so
Yeah,
I don't have specific thoughts on it at the moment.
right. Yeah.
But just the general question of how does this relate to asset management occurs to me right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that is the issue. And yeah, when you say is asset management a part of PACE or not, yeah, this is trying to clarify what that question means. You need to have
Okay.
asset management.
Right.
Where do you draw it? So,
Okay. That
I'm
makes sense.
gonna move this into the project so we can put it as to do.
yeah, this was a head up that the issue exists, not not trying to come up with an answer today.
Okay. Harry, I thought you were a mile ahead of us.
Okay. Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about today? These pull requests are older.
The two open pull requests are both in draft status, so we couldn't merge them anyway.
Yeah, I mean these. All right. Is there any other issue that we want to talk about today, or do we want to kind of keep it short since some people are missing?
So I don't think my team has any specific issues to bring to the table. We are working on looking at the OIF orchestrator and how do we enhance that in order to serve in the role of the PCS for PACE. We have to add, in essence, a northbound interface to it to take commands from that external decision maker, and then some brains to translate those commands into the ones that would be directed at the components being evaluated. So no small task there, and we're on the leading edge of figuring that out. And we've also started some work on what the OpenC2 actuator profile for posture attribute collection might look like. The technical committee has agreed to creating that as a new work product, and we need to work through those specifics, which shouldn't take too much longer. But in the meantime, we're starting to at least think through what the content of that would look like. So that's our status update.
Yeah, for DoD's status update, previous OpenC2 work has been sponsored by Google, and they've been very helpful in giving us free credits to work on OpenC2 testing, and that's what we've used in previous Plugfests. NSA has its own Amazon environment, but because it's controlled by the government, it's moves at government speed. So I'm looking at using a free implementation of AWS. You can get some things free for a year, so that perhaps a year from now they might actually be usable in the government's official AWS cloud. But we're thinking about the same things that that Dave is thinking about. How do you define what the PCS does, and and all the issues that get involved there. So hopefully we will have two implementations that will work to the identical interfaces. That's the goal.
Great. Any other updates? All right, I'll take that as a no. Then I guess we can break a little early.
Right?
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.